In the pre-dawn hours of September 22nd, 1979, the world was unknowingly poised on the edge of a profound and enduring mystery. Deep in the southern hemisphere, a desolate expanse of ocean stretched between the continents of Africa and Antarctica, far from prying eyes. This region, a void of shipping lanes and air traffic, was the perfect theater for a secret to unfold. High above, orbiting in the silent, cold vacuum of space, a sentinel stood its lonely watch. This was the United States Vela Hotel satellite 61911, a relic of an earlier era of atmospheric nuclear testing. Its primary mission was elegantly simple yet critically important: to detect the telltale sign of a nuclear detonation anywhere on Earth. The satellite was specifically designed to identify the unique, characteristic double flash of an atmospheric nuclear explosion. This signature, a brief, intense flash followed by a second, longer one, was considered an unmistakable fingerprint of an atomic bomb. For years, the Vela satellites had performed their duty with unerring accuracy, a testament to the ingenuity of their creators at Los Alamos. They had successfully identified 41 previous atmospheric tests, every single one of which was later confirmed. But on this particular September morning, the satellite detected something that would be debated for decades. At precisely 0:53 Greenwich Mean Time, its sensors registered a rapid, brilliant burst of light. Just as its programming anticipated, this was followed by a second, slightly longer and less intense flash. The event was fleeting, a momentary flicker in the vast darkness over the southern Indian Ocean. Instantly, an alert was triggered within the labyrinthine corridors of the United States military and intelligence apparatus. Analysts at the Air Force Technical Applications Center scrambled to interpret the cryptic data stream. Initial conclusion was immediate and deeply alarming. The double flash signature was present, a textbook case for a nuclear detonation. The estimated yield was small, perhaps 2 to 3 kilotons, but the implications were monumental. An undeclared nuclear test would represent a grave violation of international treaties and a significant escalation in global tensions. The Cold War was at a precarious stage, with suspicion and paranoia defining international relations. President Jimmy Carter's administration, which had championed nuclear non-proliferation, was immediately briefed on the disturbing event. The central question was not just what had happened, but who might have been responsible. Suspicion quickly fell upon two nations operating under a veil of international isolation and secrecy. The first suspect was the apartheid regime of South Africa, a pariah state on the world stage. Intelligence agencies had long believed that Pretoria was actively pursuing a nuclear weapons capability. The location of the flash, near South African-controlled Prince Edward Islands, was highly suggestive. The second suspect was Israel, whose own nuclear program was a poorly kept secret. It was widely theorized that Israel and South Africa were collaborating on military and nuclear technology. A joint test, conducted in a remote oceanic location, would serve both their strategic interests perfectly. The need for conclusive proof sent the U.S. military into a flurry of activity. Air Force BC-135B sniffer planes were dispatched on dozens of sorties to collect air samples from the region. These aircraft were essentially flying laboratories, designed to detect radioactive isotopes released by a nuclear blast. Pilots flew grueling, long-range missions, crisscrossing the suspected fallout path. However, the vastness of the ocean and the unpredictability of high-altitude winds made the search incredibly challenging. To the consternation of many, The initial flights returned with no definitive trace of radioactive debris. This lack of a smoking gun was a major blow to the nuclear test hypothesis. It opened the door for alternative explanations and sowed the seeds of official doubt. But other, more subtle, pieces of evidence began to surface from different corners of the globe. The Naval Research Laboratory undertook an exhaustive analysis of hydroacoustic data. They used a network of underwater microphones, originally placed to monitor Soviet submarines. Their report identified a signal consistent with a small underwater or low-altitude explosion. The signal's origin was triangulated to the same remote area where the flash was observed. Furthermore, a strange atmospheric phenomenon was recorded thousands of miles away. The Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico detected an unusual traveling ionospheric disturbance on that very morning. This wave in the upper atmosphere was moving from the southeast, a direction that aligned with the incident. Scientists at the observatory noted that they had never observed such an event before. Then, a controversial piece of biological evidence emerged from Australia. A study found very low levels of iodine-131, a short-lived fission product, in the thyroids of sheep in Victoria. Wind pattern analysis suggested that fallout from the suspected explosion site could have been carried precisely to that region. Despite this growing body of circumstantial evidence, the official narrative began to shift. The Carter administration convened a panel of esteemed civilian scientists, headed by Doctors Jack Reyna of Meteor. Their task was to provide a definitive, public-facing explanation for the Vela event. After reviewing the data, the RUNA panel came to a startling and highly contentious conclusion. They declared that while they could not rule out a nuclear explosion, they considered it improbable. Instead, they proposed a different, more exotic explanation for the satellite signal. The panel suggested the satellite might have been struck by a small meteoroid. This was termed a zoo event, a catch-all for unexplained phenomena. The theory posited that sunlight could have reflected off the debris from such a collision. This reflection, they argued, might have coincidentally mimicked the double flash signature of a nuclear bomb. This explanation was met with significant skepticism from many quarters. The Los Alamos scientists who built and managed the Vela program were particularly critical. They maintained that their satellite was reliable and the data was unambiguous. They pointed out that the satellite was old, but its bang meters, the optical sensors, were simple and robust. Critics of the meteoroid theory highlighted its extreme statistical improbability. The chances of a random impact creating a light curve that so perfectly matched a nuclear signature were considered astronomically low. One analysis calculated the odds of such a coincidence as 1 in 100 billion. Furthermore, the RUNA panel failed to provide a detailed physical model to support their hypothesis. Their explanation remained a vague possibility rather than a scientifically demonstrated alternative. This led many to believe the panel's conclusion was driven more by political necessity than scientific rigor. Admitting a clandestine nuclear test by an ally like Israel or a sensitive state like South Africa would have created a diplomatic firestorm. An official conclusion of unresolved was a much safer, more politically expedient path. And so, the Vela incident was officially relegated to the archives as an enigma. Despite the official uncertainty, many intelligence and scientific professionals remained convinced. The weight of the evidence, the double flash, the hydroacoustic signal, the ionospheric disturbance, pointed overwhelmingly to one conclusion. In the years that followed, more information trickled out, strengthening the case for a test. Commodore Dieter Gerhardt, a convicted Soviet spy and former commander of a South African naval base, later claimed it was an Israeli test. He called it Operation Phoenix and alleged that a small fleet of Israeli ships had been present. Today, the consensus outside of official government statements is that a nuclear device was indeed detonated. The Vela Incident serves as a chilling reminder of the secret histories hidden beneath the surface of the Cold War. It was a ghost of the atomic age, a fleeting flash that illuminated the shadowy world of nuclear proliferation. The debate between a nuclear test and a meteoroid impact continues, a battle between evidence and official denial. Final, absolute truth of what happened in that remote stretch of ocean remains an elusive secret. It is a mystery written in a brief, silent flash of light, captured by a lonely satellite, and then deliberately obscured by the fog of geopolitics.